Welcome to We Are Everyone, a video and podcast series powered by Pivotal Moments, and we focus on the intersection of mental wellness in the workforce. We bring together young professionals and mindful executive mentors to bridge the generational gap and bring to the surface conversations about the importance of mental wellness and how to overcome career tradition challenges. Mental wellness is paramount. Join us. Welcome to We Are Everyone. I'm your host, Jen Sherman, and we are in season 3 of the show, which is really exciting. We have 2 very special guests on today. We have Chaise Schmidt. She is a tenant client advisor at Cushman and Wakefield. And we also have Hoang. He is the CEO of boodleAI and just an entrepreneur and veteran, just an amazing man. And Chaise is very amazing too. I feel like I gave a little too much love to France there. But welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Jennifer. Great to be here.
So we like to always start the show with a statistic about mental wellness. So today we're going to present nearly 3/4 of workers are significantly less productive now, suffering from stress and anxiety due to COVID-19. What trends are you seeing in the workplace when it comes to employees' mental wellness and disengagement / productivity? This could go to pre-COVID and also in the COVID world. Chaise, do you want to take on this question first?
I think a lot of companies, when they pre-COVID, were trying to help more with mental wellness just a little bit. Now, I think that it's been more prevalent than ever. I see a lot of companies doing Wellness Wednesday, where they do an hour session, having a personal coach there. There's a virtual wellness week that the company is doing this week. We're at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and at 3 p.m. there's something we can do. There was meditation every morning at 9 o'clock. 12 o'clock is the session, the hour session. So, kind of moving, a lot of that. And on the bigger scale, kind of trends now more than ever, people are diving into diversity and inclusion conversation, hiring executives or getting a committee started with their company at work, and an effort trying to get them to be more productive.
Awesome. I like that idea of the Wellness Week. I think that's something that's important, but also, frankly, I think Wellness Week should, be every week, but, that's just for me to say. How about you, France?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that COVID is like the event of our times, right? In terms of its effect, not just on people's professional lives, but their personal lives. And in particular, breaking down the barrier between those two things. I mean, we've been slowly moving towards this world where work became more of a 24/7 activity, right? We started, obviously able and text messaging and Slack, and it was intruding, but now the lines are completely blurred, right? Once everyone was sent home to work, a couple of things happened that really affected people. First, they were removed from their work environment and having that day-to-day interaction with their peers and their work colleagues. And then second, they were thrust in this place where the line between family life and home life basically disappeared. And so, I have 3 kids under the age of 7 at home. And so I refer to them as my coworkers, and they make their co-working presence known quite a bit during my Zoom calls. And, whereas a year ago, I was aghast if, my 3-year-old ran in yelling, "Daddy, daddy, daddy," and that could have been like a CNN viral moment. Now that's just like Thursday, right? And so that combination of being removed from the people you're normally around at work and then being surrounded by your family and still trying to get work done, I think has had a dramatic, not to belabor the obvious, but a dramatic impact on the way people work and work-life balance.
And question to that, France, because I know that you were able to, the idea of productivity with your family. I mean, I know even my parents who they're both working, and I don't think they've spent this much time together in their, 38 years of marriage. And there's this aspect of like, I think where there's this work-life balance of where everything merges, but at the same time, do you find that you're getting you're closer to the family because you're communicating in this way that you probably have never really had to communicate because you go into the office space every day and then you come home and kind of have dinner in the routine?
Yeah, I think one of the silver linings of the pandemic, if there is such a thing, right, is the sheer amount of time people are spending with their families. I think I saw an interesting stat, I'm probably going to quote it wrong, but now more than ever, or now for the first time in more than like in a couple of decades, we have more people living in multi-generational homes, right? Like grandparents were brought in as part of pandemic pods or quarantines, whatever you call them. The kids were staying home, and all of a sudden now families are actually being families again. And so that's been wonderful, right? In terms of the quality of family time, right? I think the challenge has been now, how do I get my work done, and how do I get my work done in a way that it doesn't take over everything, from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. And, as you mentioned, I'm a co-founder of a company. I've actually been on several founding teams. I'm also a partner at a law firm, and I help run a co-working space. And the biggest challenge that I see the folks in my companies wrestle with is where do I draw that line, right? And when work can be anytime, then work is all the time, and that's not healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can say that it's that those boundaries, right, of which we'll talk about a little bit in the interview as well, is where people kind of also expect, they're like, oh, you're not anywhere, right? You're home, you're available. And it's like, well, you know what? From 2 to 3 today, I'm not, because I'm just going to take a brain break and maybe watch some Netflix. But, perhaps then I'll work at 7. We have more flexibility, but it's also creating those boundaries. I think at least some of us are getting used to that more than before. Right. So something else that we have been talking about at Pivotal Moments is this term mental fitness. And I think, there was a stigma around mental health prior to COVID. And even so now, people are grappling with this whole idea of mental health. But what mental fitness is being aware of the importance of mental strength. Mm-hmm. So one is, what do you think of when you hear the term mental fitness? And then also, how do you practice mental fitness on a daily basis? And then also, how can leaders use mental fitness to drive innovation and entrepreneurship? Chaise, did you want to speak to this first, and then France?
Sure. So for me, mental fitness is really keeping your brain and emotional health in tip-top shape, right? Especially so that you are able to deal with the stress and challenges of everyday life. How I practice that is I try to, read a lot. At the beginning of COVID, I tried to do crossword puzzles and things like that. Felt like I ran out of time. But I was trying to just and then I was thinking about it, and just even finding humor in things and laughing and being with one another, being truly present is a part of being mentally fit. I liked trying recipes, just trying something new felt really good. And I think that leaders, and France can talk to more since he is a leader, promoting that and promoting goal setting and just trying to put out the positivity. By example, is probably one of the best ways to do that. But I am interested to hear what France has to say.
Yeah, I'll build on what Chaise said. So I think there's a lot of analogies, frankly, between physical fitness and mental fitness. So you mentioned I served in the military. I'm a veteran. Actually served during 2 different periods of time, and I think there are 3 components of mental fitness. So first, do you have the reserves to do what you need to do during the day, right? Mentally. Second, do you have the ability to recharge those reserves once they're depleted? And then do you have the knowledge and ability to make your reserves stronger, to increase them over time, right? And same thing, right? If you work a muscle, you're going to get tired, you need the ability to recharge it. And then if you work the muscle enough, you get stronger. So I think very analogous in terms of in an organization, there's a clear link between being mentally fit, having the reserves, being rested, being recharging and growing, working those mental muscles and getting stronger, and having the ability to be an entrepreneur or innovator. Because Frankly, none of us are our best when we're physically tired and when we're mentally exhausted. And so as an organizational leader, I think it's important to monitor what the mental fitness of your employees is, where their levels of reserve are, make sure that they have the time, space, and resources to recharge and bring up their level of mental fitness again. And then, I think if you want to be really proactive, right, give them the tools to increase their level of mental fitness. And Chaise mentioned some of those things, and I agree. Those are all great ways to do that.
Yeah, and speaking to, we have it kind of working your way up the corporate ladder, if you will, right? And right now, the job market. I mean, we had another guest on who he owns he owns a commercial real estate design company, right? And it's been, it's this balance of, okay, sure, you have to make sure that your mental fitness is okay and your mental wellness. Having said that, that it's also very, if you are trying to get up the corporate ladder or promotion or just hold your job, for some of these younger professionals, managers, how is that kind of feeling as you're trying to get a promotion in a pandemic or a job in a pandemic, and also keep your mental fitness? And I don't know if Chaise, you wanted to speak to this as well, as you were not a rising star, you are a star, but in that more manager space and rising the corporate ladder, how has that been for you, or what you're seeing kind of with your team and in the marketplace in general?
Yeah, for me, getting a little vulnerable here, I'm a manager of literally one person. A small team, directly to one person, and it's been hard because I'm trying to relate to how they learn best, right? Working from home. Is it phone calls? Is it emails that they can print off and check off? Do they not have a printer to where they can do that anymore? Is it the video calls? What is the most effective way to reach somebody in a way that they can learn and interpret, right? Without having to go back and forth a million times on emails, because so for me, it's definitely that out. I'm being, hey, I'm trying to help you. Help me help you. What can I do? How does this work best for you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And asking people every time, how are they personally, right, as well as professionally, but letting them understand that you care about them personally has been helpful too. But it's been, I'm sure Grants can talk about it, it's a challenge right now. It's tough to be a manager. So feel it every day.
Yeah. Francis, did you have anything further to comment on that, just in regards to what you're seeing with your team?
Yeah, I think I love analogies, right? So if you think of your mental wellness as a bank account, right? You're either making deposits or you're making withdrawals. And in the short term, you can make big withdrawals, but then you gotta replenish that account. And by the way, the lower the account remains, the less principal there is and the less interest that builds, right? And so it can be tempting to burn the midnight oil, to kind of work yourself to exhaustion. Certainly I have very passionate, motivated employees that are, they love the work they do. They see it as a mission and not just as a job. And so the danger, right, is actually the opposite. They work too hard. And so I think as a leader, first you got to be aware about that yourself, right? Are you making deposits or making withdrawals, and what's your level in the account, and are you building up interest? And second, you got to monitor that among your employees too, and give employees not just the space but the permission to take care of themselves. And then frankly, as a leader, if they're not taking care of themselves, you make sure that they do, because it doesn't serve their interest, your interest, or the organization's interest to have employees become burnt out. And I think we're seeing an extremely high level of employee burnout among motivated, passionate, dedicated workers because of the things that Chaise mentioned and we've been talking about, which is this blurring of lines between work and home, the realities of the fact that our economy is under a tremendous amount of pressure. Companies are in many cases struggling to make do, get by. And so, for those that have a job, many of them feel lucky to have a job, and they feel like they need to work even harder than they did before, now in more difficult circumstances than they did before.
Yeah, and I see, I guess we don't realize at the end of the day, like, since there isn't, at least for me, I haven't traveled really anywhere, and there's no sense of time or like, oh, it was Christmas or it was
Yeah.
New Year. Okay. Like it's the same day every day. And the only things that really shake things up are, the stuff that's been happening in around the DC and the Capitol to like, okay, this is time, this is an event. But it's crazy because we are going through this, there's no sense of that. And then you're just working. It's like, that's what our purpose is. But it is important to, I guess that's where I was talking about the leadership is you want to encourage the passion and innovation, but you also, it's like to the vulnerable aspect, like it's like where do you care a little too much where you're just like, okay, how are you doing versus like, there's that balance of like, are you giving them too much rein where it's like they don't, asking too many questions? It's like, where's that balance of transparency, right? Like, and it's just it's an interesting time, and this kind of goes into the aspect of the different generations in the workplace. So particularly now we have, and this is what we really focus on in the show is highlighting some young professionals matched with professionals who are a little more advanced in their career. But we have college kids graduating. And I remember when I graduated college, like I was going right into the networking and happy hours and meeting people, but and given resources in an office. And we don't have that right now. So we have Gen Z, millennials, Gen Xers, and baby boomers. And there's a lot of different outlooks on mental fitness and mental health across the generation. So I always like to ask, how do you think the different generations should communicate about the topic, learn to understand each other, support each other, and like, even though they do have these different outlooks and experiences? Whoever wants to start.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think my personal opinion is that the impact that COVID has been very disproportionate, and frankly, young people are bearing a pretty heavy burden of it, more than I think a lot of people think. Right? Like, some people are like opinion. Well, if you're 21, what do you have to worry about? Right? Well, actually, a lot. Right? I mean, if you put yourself back in, like you said, right, as a 21-year-old, your life, as you know, it has just come to an end. Right? Like people aren't going out. If they are, they're taking more risks than maybe they feel comfortable with. They're cut off from their peer network. It's been years since I was on a dating scene, but that cannot be fun right now in the middle of a global pandemic. At my companies, it is often the younger people who are most eager to get back to the next normal and who actually want to return to an office environment where they're surrounded by colleagues and peers. And also, I think, whereas I have a family, I'm surrounded by the chaos and anarchy that is raising young children. And so I don't want for like human interaction. I have employees who, when their Zoom call's done, they go back to an empty house. And that is, that wears on a person. And so I think in terms of communication, I think different generations need to appreciate where people are at, right? And the different experiences that different generations are having in COVID, and not assume that your experience is everybody's, which I don't think most people do, but just to be aware of that, right? And then to be aware of how, where you stand depends on where you sit, right? And these different circumstances lead to very, very different outcomes in terms of, what people want for the next normal.
Yeah, I think that is actually, it's the perspective where like you always think you're like, oh, my situation's the worst, where it's like, actually, like it's not, you have to look at like every situation individually and just try to be empathetic and put yourself in everyone's shoes, because it definitely stings when the Zoom goes off. It's like, okay, I guess it's just me again and some pasta for dinner and like, wine. Like that's, of course, like, but there's the beauty of technology, but that's an interesting point. And Chaise, I would love to get your opinion on this, as well as you kind of sit in the middle ground of the generations here.
Yeah, you actually hit the nail on the head. What I was going to say is empathy, just being empathetic and kind to one another, because you don't know where they go after that call is over. For me personally, I have been client facing, So when you are, it's more of a comfort level. And what are people up at? Hey, I can shake your hand. I mean, everything's so different. And that's what we're all trying to navigate right now. That's probably been the main part too, is seeing that people trying to kind of get back into that, personal face-to-face type stuff because it's across the board. So I always try to take a step back, see the people's comfort levels. How is everybody feeling? How is everyone doing? What are they comfortable with? And then just being empathetic and just trying to be kind, because being unkind in a pandemic is kind of weird, right?
Yeah. Also, Chaise, to your point, like with the industry that you're in, I mean, most of the time, at least I know a lot of the wheeling and dealing going on is like, it is when I say shaking, I can shake my own hand right now because that's like, okay, that's socially responsible. But it is that in person, those meetings, it's all in person. You have to give the tours. So does it feel like a little more stale now? Like it's a little more of a doctor appointment? Like how is that?
No, because you know me, I will make a joke about it. So, I'm always, hi, how are you? I put my wave because I'm not going to stick my hand out and shake somebody's hand. But today we had a meeting and the guy shook hands. I didn't even think about it until after we were leaving. He was trying to shake hands again with everyone. Oh yeah, we don't really do that anymore.
Wait, so did you go for it?
Not the first one I did. I didn't even think about it. And then, and it was also this one. So it's like kind of not even, fully mentally fit. I hadn't had my caffeine yet. And so, but leaving, I had already kind of shoot out the door, and he was shaking hands with the last guy. So it's kind of wild.
Interesting. That's just like baffling to me that like this is the world that we live in. Because I mean, I conduct most of my business virtually, and so France, for you, how has conducting business been in that aspect? Just in outside, like where it's more so outward facing, not internally for the company. How's that been?
Yeah, so this Zoom world. So, my current company, Boodle, we've been virtual since the beginning. Like we've had employees across multiple time zones. We were on Zoom well before like Zoom became an everyday thing. It's interesting, right? So a couple observations about Zoom meetings, right? Back in the day when you had in-person meetings, you would finish a meeting and then you drive to another meeting, or at least walk down the hall, and you do introductions and you sit and maybe you wait for coffee and you get a look around the conference room. There's this transition time, right? So what's interesting about Zoom is you can have days, and I've certainly had these, I'm sure you both as well, where you go from like Zoom to Zoom to Zoom, and it's just like really abrupt. There's no mental transition time. And Zoom fatigue's real, right? Like there's been studies that show like looking at your little avatar of yourself is kind of at some level stressful. And then not having that mental break time between meetings, I think adds to that. The second observation I would have is, and this is actually a potentially a good thing, which is this peek into people's own personal world, right? Like, you're now Zooming and you see people's family rooms and you see their home offices and their kids run in. And it's that breaking down of the social, professional, personal barrier and getting to know people a little bit more one-on-one, I think has actually been a positive from Zoom, right? Versus kind of like dressing up in a suit and meeting someone in the office. And, it's kind of like, it's very set, right? So it's different. And I would say that as we go into whatever the next normal is, I think some people are like, well, I can't wait for it to go back to the way it was. I don't think it's going back to the way it was. I think the world has changed. I think work travel is going to take a hit. I think that in-person meetings are still important, but I think the successful organizations are going to find a way to bridge both worlds. And I think the future is hybrid, right? That we're going to do some things virtual, we're going to do some things in person, and that successful events are going to leverage both and bring in people both in real life and virtually. And organizations that can adapt to that structure are going to be the most successful going forward.
Yeah, I love now all these new terms are coming up with the COVID, like never know what quarantine was until now, or these like the hybrid model, right? Like this hybrid model of working, because to your point, first off, Zoom fatigue is real. Yesterday was too much. Today I was like, I rescheduled a bunch of calls because it's exhausting. But Chaise, this goes totally to like what you do every day. We number one, people need people. We're going to always need human interactions. So there's going to need to be a space for those human interactions. But what are you seeing in trends with the commercial real estate world when it comes to the hybrid, virtual, or in person?
Yeah, so obviously, back in the day, it was all offices, right? Everybody wanted their own office, and the pendulum swung probably a little too far, and it was all open. And now we're kind of swinging back to now it's a work from home, right? Because now everybody has had this kind of forced work from home experiment. And at first, people were saying, "Oh, I'm productive. I'm doing great." Mind you, it was spring. The time was changing. We're getting longer days. Be outside. Now looking at fall, people are like, "I want to go back. I'm ready to go back. I had my time home. I'm good to go. I'm ready to go." So you're right. There will have to be a hybrid because France likes to use analogies. I have a good analogy for this one. Our new office trend is going to be like how people go to the grocery store. Some people go every day, right? Maybe people in New York who don't have a lot of storage or a big fridge, they're going every day. You have some people that go to the grocery store between 1, 2, 3 times a week, just depending on what they need, they go in. That's probably going to be the majority of people in regards to the new workplace. And then you have people who have groceries delivered at home. They're there 24/7. They're not wanting to be in. And those are going to be your people that work first. So it's having companies find out from their employees through, research and some of these surveys that are done by professional companies, rather than doing your own survey. That's what's going to give you the data point to figure out what you need to do, how many seats you need in your space, if you need to go bigger or you could go smaller. That's going to be the trend is figuring that out, and it's going to be different for everyone.
Interesting. And to note that, so, my brain's going, I'm definitely the 24-hour delivery grocery store person, everything, like all the apps, I have everything. Like if I need even like NyQuil at night, like GoPuff, they deliver it 15 minutes. It's amazing. But to your point, Chaise, like I think that, we're seeing a lot of the co-working spaces, like right now, except for Mindspace in Israel, let's go, they're expanding in the pandemic. Good job. But they're in this awkward space because they're not like, people aren't really going in, particularly if you're a solopreneur, you're like, I don't need my desk. Having said that, I believe that actually the co-working space is going to be more of the hybrid model for offices and for companies because they can have like those like the what are they? They're like the hotel offices or not like hotel, like a hoteling. So you can kind of go in, collaborate, have the office rooms. No one's really assigned an office necessarily unless it's like your top tier for some. So it's going to be interesting to see how the commercial real estate world, the co-working space companies and companies are going to work together in this, hybrid world we'll be living in. Did you have anything else to comment on that as well, France?
No, I'm good, actually. I think Chaise covered it better than I could.
I love it. So are you a 24-hour then grocery store, or are you someone who kind of goes out, a couple times a week?
Oh, I'm my wife and other family members part of our quarantine have immunosuppression issues, and so we're totally locked down. Yeah.
Love those delivery apps. Amazon has been a good friend of mine in this pandemic. Amazing. So we always like to ask our guests, what does mental wellness mean to you?
I can go first. Mental wellness, what that means to me comes down to, healthy mental wellness and fitness is being happy, right? And I'm most happy during the work week helping to solve problems, meeting, being part of the team, moving things forward. Nothing feels better than moving a project forward. So for me, that's kind of where I'm at with all of that. As long as I'm doing something, participating, I feel good. And if I feel good, I'm mentally happy, well, fit.
I love that. How about you, France?
Yeah, so earlier we talked about mental fitness, right? What level you're at, the ability to recharge, the ability to get stronger. So I think mental wellness is having the level of mental fitness you need to do what you want to do day to day. And obviously, so that means it's very individual, right? Like the mental wellness for a soldier in combat may be different than mental wellness for a school teacher, which is different than a stay-at-home dad, right, raising a pair of twins. And so, each of us has different needs in terms of mental reserves, but each of us also has different circumstances and a different way to recharge and a different way to grow stronger.
It's true. It's like, it's not one size fits all with this game, right? So not a game, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But actually now we can get into a little bit of a game. What's that resource? So going to, a lot of, the common practices of strengthening or flexing your mental fitness muscle is around, people can say meditation or yoga, going for a walk, all fabulous things. But I like to think about it as like, what's that kind of thing that maybe you do if it's singing in the shower or screaming into a pillow? That always works. What do you do to flex your mental fitness muscle?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I'll tell you what I don't do, first of all. I don't go to social media. So one of my favorite quotes is from Theodore Roosevelt. He said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And he lived in an age before Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Twitter. And I think he would have doubled down on that quote had social media existed in his time. I think social media is terrible for one's mental health in the aspect of, there's this urge to compare yourself. And if you look at social media, someone is always living a better life than you are. And the fact of the matter is they're not, right? And so what I do encourage people to do is take a break from yourself. Like whatever it is that your circumstances are, I think we all benefit from perspective. So if you live in the city, go to the country, right? If you live in the country, go to the city, right? If your workday is sitting sedentary, then go out and get moving, right? If your workday is moving all the time, sit down. So whatever it is that your circumstances are, taking a break from yourself, I think is the key, in my opinion, to having a good level of mental wellness and mental fitness.
I really like that answer. So for me, it's true, because I'll tell you something. When I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't know what else to do. I'm trying to fall asleep, so I'll just go to Twitter. It's dangerous. Like, of course I'm not going to fall back asleep on Twitter. I'll take that one. Chaise, how about you?
For me, I do a few things. So if I call one the clean and scream. So if I'm at home, I'm cleaning. It provides law and order for me. It's so good to have everything. One thing I can control, I control. The scream is if I'm in the car alone and everything's going every direction, I may just take a minute and scream in the car. And it feels so good to get it out. And then I'm fine. May sound a little crazy, but I've only done that like twice. It really
worked.
Yeah. And then the other thing I do is, as you know, Jen, friends, you don't know this, I go to a boxing gym called Bash Boxing, and hitting an aqua bag, which looks like a drop, is just the best form of release for me. It gets it all out. I think through the whole workout about stuff. I feel so much clarity at the end, and I think that.
I love that. Yeah, we were practicing our boxing before you came on, France.
Jen is like, yeah. I'm like,
I was like, yeah. No, I love that. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I wanted to give you both an opportunity to add anything before we wrapped up today.
You want to go, France? Do you have anything?
Look, I think these are tough times for everyone. No one's going to look back on 2020 and say, wow, that was my year. Right. And 2021, so far the trial period for 2021 has not been that great. So I think we all need to be patient with ourselves first and foremost, and then be patient with those around us. And that little extra patience goes a long way.
It does. I also still think we're in 2020. I don't like a continuation. How about you, Chaise?
I feel that too, Jen. I feel that. Yeah, just being kind. And like I said, understanding that everyone has a different background, is coming from a different place, and to give them that space they need is going to go so far beyond in helping everyone through this. And we have to get through this together. We're all in it literally together. So we got to work.
We are everyone. That's why we made the show, really, because this is the one thing we can really align on right now is just our mental wellness and like having, again, being kind. Like you can talk to anyone in the world right now. This is like it's kind of cool in a not a great way, just because, you can talk to everyone in the world right now, anyone, and they can relate to you in some regard because of this virus. And it's not, like I said, not great, but it is a very unique time. So I just would like to thank both of you for joining the show today. Great conversation. Really excited to get this out there to our community. We have Chaise Schmidt. She is a tenant advisor at Cushman Wakefield, and also Francis Hoang. He's a co-founder of boodleAI, an entrepreneur and veteran. I just want to say thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for tuning into another episode of We Are Everyone. You can subscribe to We Are Everyone on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and also be sure to visit www.pivotalmoments.org to learn more about the organization. And we also want to hear what mental wellness means to you. So you can follow us on social media, submit your video, and we will catch you next time. Thank you so much.